Welcome everybody to the panel Unlocking Partnerships Between Universities and EdTech Companies and a Renewed Agenda for Higher Education in Latin America within the ASU+GSV Summit 2021. My name is Alejandro Caballero and I am a Principal Education Specialist at the International Finance Corporation, the private sector arm of the World Bank. I will be your moderator for today. Higher education markets in Latin America are starting to see how new collaboration models emerge, promoting the unbundling of the higher education value chain. Strategic partnerships and vendor relationships are today a reality that will accelerate in the coming years. M&A activity will also likely take off in Latin America post-pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has also accelerated the need to put in place digital strategies that include enrichment of face-to-face learning with increasing percentages of virtual content, as well as adopting online and blended delivery models. Many Latin American higher education institutions cannot do this alone, and they're starting to seek external help from content, technology, and holistic partners. This includes bootcamps, MOOCs, providers of alternative credentials, and OPMs, among many others. This panel will enable us to better understand this global trend, which will also be shaping the development of the higher education landscape in Latin America going forward. We have with us today three great higher education leaders from the region. There was also a fourth leader that unfortunately could not join the call due to a personal emergency at the last minute. I wanted to thank all three of them for being with us here today. Let me quickly introduce our panelists. Virgilio Gibbon, he's the CEO in Afya Educacional in Brazil. Welcome, Virgilio.
Thank you, Alejandro. It's a pleasure here.
Leo Schlesinger, CEO of Aliat Universities in Mexico. Welcome to the panel, Leo.
Thank you, Alejandro. Thank you, everyone, for the invitation.
And last but definitely not least, David Stofenmacher, CEO of UTEL, also in Mexico. Welcome, David.
Thank you for inviting.
In addition to these three panelists, we had a fourth panelist, Tania Zúñiga, who is the Chief Strategy Officer on Continental Universities in Peru. Unfortunately, due to the family emergency I alluded to, she hasn't been able to join us today. Without further ado, let's start this panel with a first question, this time to Leo. Leo, what is the role of universities in society in a context where technology is expected to play a significant role and content becomes a commodity? What are your views on this?
It's a great question, Alejandro, that requires some philosophical thinking here as well. I'm going to try to keep it as concrete as I can, but there are some distinctions that we need to make to just give context to what we mean by the role of universities and the role of education in general, because we need to differentiate between what is training, which today it's much talked about as the role of universities, and what is the role of a true higher education. And I will differentiate that within the training discussion about the role of universities, we need to focus, of course, on providing great knowledge and competences and skills. But I want to put this in context because we tend to think that, or the discussion is driving us to think that we can make equivalent a series of Coursera certifications to a full higher education degree, which in my opinion, it's quite different. I will say that the role of higher education goes much beyond, and it touches the full development of a human being. I know that sounds very, very large and big in general, but I will say that we need to differentiate at least three things or elements that add value from a higher education perspective. One is, of course, providing great and relevant knowledge. And in that function, universities have traditionally played a big role. So when knowledge was scarce, previous to the digital revolution and before knowledge and content was evenly distributed, the purview of universities in developing and distributing knowledge was one of the key value added, but that's no longer the case. Of course, universities have a role in providing great and relevant knowledge, but I will say that beyond that, even more important or as important as that is providing a space for understanding. So a reflective space where you make sense of that knowledge in your personal life, in your professional life, you as a citizen, you in a community. And that is part of the role of a true educational experience. Beyond understanding goes providing a toolkit for doing. How do I implement all of these capabilities and apply this knowledge in my profession, in my life, in my dreams, in what I want my life to be? The fourth element is not only that I will do and I will apply all of this knowledge into my profession, into my life, but that I will also become the person that I want to become, that I have a space in this university context to develop a vision for my life. And fifth, I will say that a university degree is also a signal to others that I have developed myself to a point that I'm a professional, that I have the skills, that I have the knowledge. So the whole discussion about unbundling, Alejandro, of the value chain in higher education, I think it has arisen because the cost or the price of the bundle has become too expensive. And it is a discussion that it arises in many places where education has become unaffordable. Many in the US, I will say it's a big example because of the level of prices that we have in higher education in the US, but also in the emerging markets or developing markets where education, even if it is not as expensive as it is in the US, for the general population still is quite expensive. So I just wanted to make that distinction because the bundle of higher education is much more than just a training, but in training is, and knowledge is, and information is a key element from a higher education perspective and continuous education, and it will be complemented and augmented by technology and all of the systems and technologies that have been developed and that we are incorporating in our toolkit, but it's not the only thing or the main thing I will say that higher education institutions provide and that a higher education degree provides.
Oh, thanks so much, Leo, and great reflections to kick us off and start this discussion. And very, very good food for thought in terms of the role of universities in society. I'd like to turn it over to Virgilio. I mean, Virgilio, you have a very clear views about what's the role of content in the new world. You've spoken about moderation of content. That's something that will be key in the post-pandemic world. Virgilio, what are your views on this? I mean, what's the role of content and how is this moderation needed in the future?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Alejandro. And this subject is something that changed dramatically in the last 10 years. It's something that changed the way that we are raising our kids. Imagine that the students that are enrolling now in any higher education program, they have read more digital characters than offline or traditional characters. The way that they share their knowledge, the information, is completely different from what we did in the past. So the way that we are going to build the knowledge and transform the content that we have into knowledge for this new generation, it's completely different. So moderation of content is a key issue that not only the universities, but every company, every way that we are building knowledge in any type of process is critical during the learning process. So during the pandemic, the boom of new content, the boom of new platform, the new tech environment, it's something that changed dramatically the methodologies, the learning process, and the adoption of new content and technology to distribute and build the knowledge the best way possible. So all these individuals that are coming and rolling to the universities and the higher education program right now, they have their DNA to learn, to better understand all that content and to navigate into content. So many universities, as Afya also we are doing, we have many digital and different medias to deliver the content that to choose the best way each individual will learn in the best way possible and build the knowledge. So moderation of content together with all the tech platform to maximize the results of this learning is crucial in this age, this new era that we are coming in the higher education sector.
No, thanks so much, Virgilio, for sharing these reflections. I'd like to turn it over to David now and talk a little bit about something that was mentioned already by Leo in his opening remarks, the unbundling of the higher education value chain. Could you help us understand, David? I mean, what are the trends that are helping accelerate this unbundling? Could you share some perspectives on this?
Yes, of course. Thank you for the question, Alejandro. Well, let me start describing the higher ed value chain, because I think we need to have a common ground to understanding that. So let's say that the first step for university is understanding the people and society needs. And then you have path. If you are a research-oriented university, you need to advance knowledge in those fields that are relevant for society. If you are a teaching institution, you should take those subjects and create an educational offer that meets that demand. Then you need to try capture the attention of your prospects and enroll them, deliver the educational experience, measure outcomes, grant certification, and facilitate the alumni placement. As you can see, unbundling is not new. From think tank that study society and in for the future, always been, private company investing in R&D, publishers creating courseware, marketing agencies helping recruitment, tutors, IT companies granting certifications, manpower agents, and so on. But the really difference right now is that the university is losing the monopoly of knowledge, is losing the monopoly of telling who has the right skill for a certain job. Because surfing on the internet, you could find so much information that can be translated into knowledge, and this knowledge, each individual can translate it into proficiency. So as Leo and Virgilio mentioned, the digital transformation is creating a huge marketplace where you as a learner can get a lot of what you have expected from a higher ed institution, or as a new player and a flexible one can provide small pieces of the experience with much less friction rather than traditional institutions. So I think that's the issue about unbundling.
No, thanks, David. And I think we've set the tone for this very relevant discussion today. I'd love to turn it over to Leo now to go a little bit deeper into some specifics. I mean, how can universities explore partnerships to promote digital skills, develop alternative credentials, and embrace entrepreneurship as part of the university's DNA? I mean, just to mention a few things. Leo, over to you.
Yeah, and I think within the bundle of the services and value that universities should provide encompasses everything that you just said. And the key question is, should we do it all ourselves, or we can partner with others to include that technology and those services within the ecosystems of the university. And I think that's the future. We need to include in the university system the best provision of knowledge, of systems, of technology, of services that will provide the most value to the students. As I said before, a true education encompasses much more than just providing knowledge and skills. It is a core element in knowledge and skills, like David said. There are technologies and systems today that are advancing at a light speed. The efficiency and the outcomes that we can create and that by which we can improve learning through these technologies, through adaptive learning, through micro-learning, through these intelligent platforms that will serve the students. Now, that once you provide this full educational experience, lifelong, you could also continue to provide these services and be with and walk along the alumni of the schools and providing continuous services and education and skills to continue to advance their career for the duration of their life. So it is something that, to summarize, I believe that the platform architecture of a university where you provide different services, some yourself, some through partnerships, that you include all of these services with the best technology and the best partners possible, and that you, beyond the time of a degree, you continue to serve the student throughout their lives, providing them with skills, with tools, with ability to engage with the labor market, to start their own company, to become entrepreneurs. I think that will be a key element of the value proposition of our university.
No, thanks so much, Leon. We'll have a time to go more in depth into this value proposition, but let's maybe now explore a little bit the different type of partners that we might see in higher education. And let's maybe ask David about maybe the role of large technology companies like Microsoft, Amazon, Google. What do you think it's going to be their role in higher education going forward?
Well, it's a difficult question to answer. These big companies, I mean, they surprise us every day. But let me try give a provocative answer, a provocative reflection. I can see three different paths. First, the temptation of those dominant players to use higher education to train their people in their technology. And on one hand, that's great because it provides some kind of technical knowledge that boosts employability. But on the other, this can be seen as a way to maintain their dominance over the industry and put some restriction on innovation and competition. Second path could be future of education, of the present of a higher education, live no more in the campus, live on the cloud. From enrollment driven by digital to content on CMS or libraries, video lessons, outcomes on the social networks, or even the complete learning experience. As those companies represent a big part of the cloud services, we could expect that higher education in the future will be not shaped by the Coursera's, SNHU, or Harvard, but more by them. Third path could be personalization. This is a possibility that those companies will apply the power of their infrastructure, the deep knowledge they have on consumer data, as well as all the data they have collected during this year from commercial activities, their understanding of the future of work, the machine learning power, to serve not only search, to serve not only the e-commerce, to serve to create not only network, but create a personalized educational experience that would finally help to discover and train each student superpower. So we have different possibilities. No one knows which will win.
Well, thanks, David. And clearly the jury is still out on this, but let's maybe turn it over to Virgilio now. And I mean, there's another type of partner. These are venture-backed edtech companies that are very agile, that can interact with universities in innovative ways. Virgilio, what's your view about the role that venture-backed edtech will play going forward?
Yeah, considering this world that we are with a ton of content, we need a lot of technology approach to deliver the best learning process possible. So I'd like to be more a wide scope, not only ed tech companies, but tech companies, health tech companies, industry-related tech companies that will help to build the knowledge for the best profession, for the best career, that we are developing inside our higher education institutions. So imagine that tech companies preparing the moderation, how we are going to adapt the content to better deliver for the students inside the class, depending on each individual, on each DNA that they have. A second, as we are every time closer to the industry, we need tech companies, and in our case, in health tech companies, we have many partnerships that we are building or simulating how would be their journey during their professional career. So imagine a physician, how they are going to interact with telemedicine, how they are going to interact with the digital medical record, digital prescription. If you go 10 years ago, nothing of that was inside the labs or inside the classroom. Now they have to survive. So we have to embed this into curriculum for any career, not only the physician, but every industry-related career. You have to bring the tech companies that will have to build this knowledge and to simulate how will be the real life after going out of our schools here. So this is very important, not only to deliver the best content, but also to deliver and to simulate how would be the best journey during their career after concluded their graduation.
Oh, thanks, Virgilio. And obviously, many universities are looking at this journey that goes even beyond graduation. That's a very, very key area. And maybe this brings us to our next question, building on Virgilio's comment. More and more, there's a role for universities to play in promoting upskilling, reskilling to support lifelong learning. There's new student segments like adult workers that look for flexibility in their learning experience and journey. How can partnerships accelerate this trend? Leo, I'd love to hear your views and perspectives on this.
Yeah, and it is this segment that we focus the most, with the working adult or the working student. So students that, because the segment that we serve require to work and need the flexibility to be able to work and study at the same time. So the majority of our students do both. They work and they study at the same time. So we believe, and we are focused on providing them with all of the tools to continue to advance in their careers and providing tools for them either to become more employable or to be able to start up their own business. We believe that entrepreneurial skills will be and are key to the success of our students, particularly our students that many of them tend to work in the informal sector in Mexico. They are entrepreneurs, so they need skills to continue to advance their own ventures. And on top of that, if they want to be employed by the labor market, also provide them with the skills and tools. Now, going beyond the degree and the base that a higher education degree provides, as I said before, I'm convinced that universities have a role to continue to work with the students and provide them services throughout their lives, to continue to upgrade their skills and to continue to provide them the tools to search for any path they want, whether that be employment or venture or or any other type of thing they want to do with their life and the skills that they require, we as universities have a role to play. Now, in terms of partnerships, as I said before, I think there are things that universities were much more able to do ourselves, and some things that will be better if we partner with others. Like, for example, content that has a short shelf life, that its obsolescence it's fast, like technology programs, etc. Partnering with third parties that have the brand, the knowledge, and the state-of-the-art technologies, and continue to invest in that, I think for universities makes a lot of sense. When you provide skills and certifications on top of your normal degrees throughout the career and beyond.
No, thanks so much, Leo, and obviously great reflections on lifelong learning. I know we're sort of coming towards the end of our discussion, and I wanted to give panelists a real opportunity to talk a little bit about their home countries. I mean, Brazil, obviously Mexico. I mean, I'd love to hear about how do you see the landscape for partnerships emerging in your country in the next maybe 10 years? Let's take a long-term view. And I'd like to turn it over to Virgilio first to talk a little bit about Brazil, and then, I'd love to hear from David and Leo. Over to you, Virgilio.
Yeah, I think we discussed here and saw how important is to be close to the industry, to prepare our students for the new world that's coming, to be very close what the industry is requiring to have the best workforce available. Otherwise, we are going to lose our space, and large players will start to give them certifications, and the role of higher education will be diminished on the long term. So having very close relationship with the industry, independently on the program, the sector, I think it's vital to have your curriculum, your learning process adjustable for what the market, for the labor markets require for any employee that's entering the market. So a very good example, we have partnership with more than 400 hospitals in Brazil, not only because they are hiring our professionals that are graduating in our medical schools here in Brazil, but also to understand what is the new tech, the new process that we have to embed into our curriculum to prepare the best profession. The same for the tech industry, for the telco industry. So all of them, we have to get very close partnership with the industry, and also health tech companies that help us to draw and to simulate this environment into our labs, into our content and knowledge construction into our students in every campus. So partnership, I think it's vital for the long-term sustainability of higher education everywhere. And in Brazil, it's not different.
No, thanks, Virgilio. And I'd like to turn it over to David now. And obviously, David can talk a little bit about Mexico, but through Escala, you're also present in other countries in Latin America. So would love to get from you also a comparative perspective on this. Over to you, David.
Okay, thank you. So let's say that we can see partnerships in different areas. First, partnership regarding to be closer to the industry, and then partnerships that are more related to trying to complement your capabilities as university. So I will try to refer to the second as Virgilio referred to the first. So for universities, it's all about capability and focus. And when we think about the university, we think that their goal is to develop an education and research vision and work to the faculty to execute that. But in LATAM, at least universities need to work in order to be accountable to their results, and we can measure the results in two areas. First, sustainability, that means the ability to grow and survive as institution, and that means new enrollment, retention, to having a good NPS, and of course to have a healthy P&L. On the student side, more results are related more about outcomes, produce students related or relevant to society. So students that could achieve whatever they consider success, or employability, alumni, entrepreneurs, good citizens. So regarding the partnerships, I think that in LATAM, universities are looking to help in trying to achieve these two goals, trying to produce better students, relevant students for society, and trying to make those universities sustainable in a region that is struggling. So the universities are looking for partnerships in concepts like trying to understand conversion, like conversion rates, student persistence, adaptive learning, dynamic pricing, how they provide a data lake. So you will find universities that have those capabilities, and universities that don't. As Leo mentioned, those who don't, they need to partner with companies that that complement their knowledge. And of course, partnership with companies also being more close to the industry is also very, very important. But now universities in LATAM are struggling in more fundamental things.
No, thanks, David. And this brings me to a specific question to Virgilio, because one of the interesting lessons learned from Afya's model is the ability to really create an ecosystem, including not only EdTech, but also health tech. And this has been maybe an example for other countries beyond Brazil. Virgilio, could you talk a little bit about this? How did you manage to create this ecosystem?
Yeah, first, Alejandro, we build different our approach around one professional, one career. We are focused on the medical career, not only in the 6-year duration program of the undergrad medical school, but also helping them through the residency and also all the continuing medical education that will track this professional for more than 40, 50 years during their career. And the physician, they have to keep up working, updating their skills, studying a lot every year. So it's a very long relationship. The lifetime value that we have for each student, it's very, very long. And to help to build this entire journey, we are bringing health tech companies also to fulfill their needs during their work life. So we built an ecosystem. Today we have almost 40% of the physicians in the country using some Afya services, not only the education services, one of them, but we are aiming 6 main health tech pillars. The first one is digital content. That's our DNA, to help them through their formation, to their graduation, all the continuing education that update their skills during their journey. The second is to help them for clinical decision. So with AI solution, we can help to give them more precision on their treatments and also reduce medical costs through all the journey. The third pillar is digital medical records and clinical management software to help them, give them more empowerment, flexibility, and productivity to deliver a better results to their patients. The fourth and the fifth is the telemedicine, that before the pandemic was almost a crime in the entire sector. Now is the solution, and it's changing a lot the way any type of specialist is delivering their content, their services, and patient and physician relationship and digital prescription. So all of the 6 pillars build this ecosystem, and this is fundamental to be embedded on our curriculum, on our learning process. Otherwise, the physician will not be prepared for the new challenge that they have during their career. So as soon as we get these health tech companies, we also embedded this as a content as ed tech companies, improving our labs, improving our content, and the way that we are delivering all the knowledge, building the knowledge for this physician inside their classroom. So it's everything synergy, not only the services that we are delivering for the professional, for their career, but always embedding this, how they will have to be prepared for the new disruption that the physician is seeing in their work life.
No, thanks, Virgilio. And fascinating experience about how to build this ecosystem for medical education. Really great story of success. I mean, I'd love to turn it over to David for final reflection on his side about, you know, the role of education in people's daily life. I mean, there's a growing vision that you need to enable students to access education or training any moment, any time. And related to this is the whole discussion around stackable credentials that can help move towards this vision. David, I'd love to hear your perspectives on this.
Yeah, I think in fact, right now, education is a key part of our daily life. I mean, we get education when we read books, the movies, interaction in the work. However, when we do refer about stackable credential, what we have in mind is a career model, which has a course sequence, progressive pathway, something more organized. And of course, education should be a key element of our daily life. And by unbundling degree, as Leo said, in stackable credentials, people will pay attention to every learning opportunity. Lifelong learning will be, and it is in Virgilio case, in medical field, a central role in the people life, completely the preparation, and people will take courses in different stages of careers in order to have their credentials. But at the end, from my point of view, the fundamental question is, do we need to classify people according to study credentials? Is that the most efficient way to know if a person has a skill set required for a job? Or when we think about education, should be the center of the daily life? Are we talking about technical knowledge provided by some kind of artificial intelligence platform, or the transmission of human values, as Leo referred first? Are we thinking about education, about educating people about the big human challenges like global warming, gender diversity, solidarity? Or are we thinking about more instrumental things like designing a web page or coding? So from employability point of view, I think skills are very, very important. But if we consider the center of education, the skills building, maybe not be the best strategy for us as a humankind. Maybe we should think about how we promote the values and how we promote the really fundamental things of society. And for that, what we need is to demonstrate how we change together the world and less credentials.
No, thanks, David, and great reflection on the role of credentials and the role of education in people's daily life. And maybe related to this is a final question for Leo, and I want to give you a final opportunity to share your views on this. Do you think, Leo, that universities will be able to become a Netflix of education, offering also third-party content? Is this a real vision for the sector?
First, I have to say that any experiences that enhances the learning, we will include in our programs. So if entertainment as a way of teaching it's useful, we will include it. But I have to be critical of the real value of entertainment as a way of teaching and learning. I will say that passive entertainment adds some value, but as a model for a true education, I have to be critical of its real value. We believe that real learning comes from challenging experiences, really having reflective spaces, really making sense of that knowledge in my life, in my profession, in what I want to do. And of course, gamification and entertainment will add a flavor, and it's another spice in the dish, but it is, I will say, insufficient in my view today to provide a true educational experience. So we will add anything that it will create a better experience for our students, and if providing entertainment or film-like content that will enhance that experience, it's something that students want, we will include it, but it will certainly not be the only way that we will educate our students. It won't be, it doesn't stand alone in its own 2 feet as the only way of educating our students.
No, thanks so much, Leo. And with this final question, we've come to the end of our discussion today. Once again, I want to thank our 3 panelists for a fantastic, engaging discussion, very, very well received. The agenda for partnerships between universities and edtech companies is more relevant than ever, and I think that's become evident in the discussion, and there's significant potential in Latin America. We will probably be hearing more about this in the coming months and year, in particular as we put the current global pandemic behind. I mean, it's been a real pleasure to have all 3 of you with us today in this virtual event. And let's give our panelists a virtual round of applause. Thanks so much.